Hi, everyone. So I'm back today to speak about another film. You're getting a lot of film content lately. So I'm going to be spotlighting a film called Finch and Midland that is going to be premiering in Toronto's Real Asian International Film Festival, and hopefully it'll make its way across other festivals across the country and elsewhere. And Finch and Midland is the first feature film by director Timothy Yeung, who's also someone who resides here in Ontario, Canada. So the film is Finch and Midland, as I said, and that is an intersection in a place called Scarborough, which is one of the suburbs of Canada's largest city, known as Toronto and the Greater Toronto Area. And just like any intersection, there are a lot of stories that could be told from those areas in any city. So in this film, Timothy Young is focusing on four stories from the wave of Hong Kong immigrants who came to Canada in the 1990s, hoping for a new and better life. So we learned, or we meet a former pop singer trying to reconnect with his daughter, a woman caring for her elderly mother while still yearning for love, a single mother who works in a massage parlor and dreams of becoming a realtor, and a factory manager who's confronted with the glass ceiling. So I think these are relatable stories, but it's still a film that is told through a very specific point of view, which I really appreciate. So through street malls and lights and dark nights, the film sort of reinterprets the stories of this community that Timothy Young grew up in. And it does start a really impressive ensemble cast. And some of you might recognize Anthony Wong, Chow Sang from some of the films in Hong Kong action and drama. And this film is actually a really important addition to a recent movement of local cinematic stories from the Scarborough area here in Toronto, and to connect these stories to universal themes. So I'm really excited to share my conversation with Timothy Young. We're going to talk a little bit more about the filmmaking process and invite you to see this film in the Toronto Real Asian International Film Festival. And the film is going to be screening on November 9th. So here's my conversation with Timothy Young. Hi, friends. It's Heidi M. And today in the virtual room, we have filmmaker Timothy Young. Timothy, nice to connect with you.
Lovely to meet you as well, and always happy to talk film and cinema. So thank you for the opportunity as always.
I love it. Thank you. So, in good company, we're in good company. So, Timothy, you are based here in Ontario, Canada. You tell us a little bit about your foray into filmmaking. What got you started?
I think I've just always really loved cinema, and I wasn't the best student when I was younger. I always start with the story, and so movies was my way of just kind of understanding stories. So I used to watch my cousins who were much older, their VHS tapes, and would reenact like The Goonies and reenact Back to the Future. And
Right.
I think my family, I always mentioned that my dad worked in the restaurant business, so usually they only get Tuesdays and Thursdays off. So one of our things was usually on Tuesdays, it was discounted movie tickets. So he would always bring us to the cinema. And I grew up in the 90s when a lot of my relatives also immigrated from Hong Kong.
Right.
So they brought with them like a lot of old VHS and VCDs of like Hong Kong movies. And that's kind of how I got into really into like Cantonese culture and Cantonese cinema and like Hong Kong cinema in general.
That's great. Similar upbringings in terms of being of migrant families. And I remember those cheap Tuesday tickets, paper back in the day. So
Yeah.
my foray into filmmaking, if we're sharing, is that I discover Hong Kong and Cantonese films with my grandfather who loved martial arts. So
Cool.
that's a story that I like to share. I love this family connections and how all of us kind of get into film one way or the other. But now that's your interest in film as you were growing up, and then you decided to start writing and directing. So how did your love of film turn into now you're behind the camera?
I think what my father actually passed away when I was in university. So I think he worked incredibly hard so that my sister and I could really do whatever,
Mhm.
have like much more opportunities. And I think after talking to my family, they were like, yeah, that's true. And they knew how much I loved film. So I
Yes.
said, I'm going to take this summer film course. I finished Ryerson or TMU, and
Yes.
then I took a summer film course. And I was like, okay, I'll give it my summer and I'll see if I really, really love this that much. And then just really fell in love with making movies and meeting great friends. And then that process kind of took on a life of its own. And I was very fortunate to work at a Chinese TV station right after I graduated.
Mhm.
After PAing a little bit, I was fortunate to do that. So I did a cooking program. And after that, I did commercials and eventually I could make a living and was doing okay. So my family was like, okay, this is possible. So then I decided to go back into film because I wanted to tell stories, and I was fortunate enough to applied for NYU, and I went to Tisch Asia, and then yeah, and then everything just kind of went from there.
Mhm. So
Mhm.
congratulations, that's a great story. You've
Thank you.
life experience and now, the education to go with that.
Mhm.
So I understand that you also have done a short film, and today we're going to be speaking about Finch and Midland and
Mhm.
intersection in part of the GTA called Scarborough, for those of you who are not from here.
Mhm.
And Finch and Midland is your first feature, correct?
Yes, yes, yes. It was my first feature. It's the first produced feature. Yes.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so it's making its festival rounds. And I kind of want to understand. I know you've talked about how film is part of like you see it as storytelling.
Mhm.
And I kind of want to know, when did the ideas for Finch and Midland come into, kind of fruition in your mind or on paper? Because it looks at sort of four families, I think, or around that.
Um, I always kind of worked in like the Cantonese community, like at different restaurants and different places. So I think the one thing is when you work at Chinese restaurants, especially, you always meet people, and um, after lunch, the lunch rush, we always just kind of hang out and eat. It's kind of closed. So a lot of it was based, a lot of these characters were based on people that I met along the way in my youth. I still remember a story that I always bring back is one of the dishwashers, he would tell me it's like, oh, in the mornings I'm usually at the airlines, like Cathay Pacific, doing packing the airline food, and then right in the AM, and then by the time it's the lunch rush here at like 12, he has to get to the restaurant by 12 or 12:30, and then start washing dishes until the restaurant closes at around 11:30. And he would just tell me the story, and then it's basically he's like, I have to take care of my family. Like this is what you have to do when you're here. Other parts of the film were also like my relatives growing up. One of the like my uncles, my aunts who all immigrated here, and people that I just grew up with.
Yes.
Uh, the grandmother who swears a lot in the film, that one's actually based on both my grandparents because one of them swears a lot because she was like a very yeah. And then the other one would always teach me like this is how I remember street signs when I used to subway to Chinatown.
I like.
So yeah, so it's based on them. And then, yeah, another story of the single woman was based on someone who just told me, like life is very tough here, and sometimes I just want to find someone to have a conversation with or to share half my bed with because like it gets lonely. And these are just like friends that I've known for years or people that we interviewed that I grew up with. And then when we decided to develop the project, I actually had another script that was supposed to be made.
Okay.
Um, it was based on one of my ex-girlfriend's life, and she ran a fake marriage ring with her wealthy Chinese student friends. And that script got sold to a company in Hong Kong, and we were about to make it, but the pandemic and some censorship issues kind of put it to a side.
Mhm.
And while I was very sad, a lot of my writing partners and friends said, like, well, you love Cantonese cinema and you have such a connection with the Cantonese people here.
Yes.
Maybe you should write a story about them. And fortunately, I was like, oh yeah. So I looked back at all these previous ideas that I had,
Mhm.
and I applied for a grant for the Canada Arts Council to develop the project.
Sure is.
And they were great. They gave us a grant so that we could keep developing. So I was fortunate enough to interview more people. And through these interviews, we started seeing this repetition within the community. So we thought that the most interesting way to create the film is to do an anthology,
Mhm.
whereas each character represents one struggle that immigrants are still facing today that came in the 90s. And 20, 30 years later, they're still facing the same struggles, and each character is a reflection of the other.
Mhm.
So we have one character that is a former Hong Kong singer, so someone who can't let go of their past to accept their current reality. And then on the flip side, we have somebody a woman who is willing to give up her dignity and work so hard to give a better life for her daughter. And when she thinks she might have succeeded, um, unfortunately, her own people still see her as the same.
Right.
And
Hmm.
then we thought that, okay, we wrote two stories that were about people with lower economical situations. So on the flip side, we decided to write the story about the lonely woman, the single woman, and her mom, because like it's still very difficult to buy a condo here. So you can see that she's making money.
That's right.
She's built a life, but then at the same time, you're still dealing with this idea of loneliness because
Mhm.
you're not as connected here as compared to this Hong Kong. And
Mhm.
then our last story, which was really suggested by my executive producer when he read the script, he said that like we need some more Canadian connection to it. So we wrote the fourth story where he's living in a big house in Markham, like somebody a bit more successful. He speaks English a lot more fluent compared to the other characters. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, you can never quite break the glass ceiling.
Mhm.
So we thought that this is a good way to show that many years later, people are still finding it difficult and struggling, and it's actually they're kind of stuck in between both worlds.
Mhm.
Mhm.
For summarizing those because I mean I've seen the film and I hope other people get to see the film.
Great.
And I love that it has a very, it has its own point of view from the Chinese community, also Hong Kong point of view, but it's still relatable in so many other ways to those of us who come from migrant families and
Mhm.
being kind of like one foot here, one foot um, still back home, back home, whatever that is, right?
Mhm.
And also kind of navigating this the generational stuff too, which I
Yeah.
found really interesting. So I kind of wanted to ask you about that because did you use some of your own personal experience as well in sort of developing some of these characters, like the daughter, like there's the gender stuff that is also part of culture of, especially that relationship with the mother and daughter is
Mhm.
interesting because, she's still defending the son who's sort of away trying to make a life, and nothing that the daughter does is seems to be good enough, right? So I was curious about developing those sort of younger or children characters.
We definitely tried to link this idea of family also, this gap between families within each story. So the first story with between the daughter like can't face the reality, and then this daughter that's there, and um, like each character there's always connected to something. Even our last story with Anthony,
Yeah,
he builds a connection with the surrogate person that broke in, but it's very clear that that's not like we explain that that's not his actual son,
that's
but
right.
you could tell that like he wants that connection, but he still can't move
Right.
forward to say it. And a lot of it is the same thing. It's based on my family and other families that I've met and talked to, especially the favoritism towards the absentee son too, with the grandmother and well the older lady and her daughter, just because I felt that my family has always like very much spoiled me. Like I'm very aware of this, and I have an older sister, and I could very much tell even my grandmother when she was alive, she very much favored all the males, and that's still a very present Chinese situation. So I thought that that was important to include in. And
Hmm.
then of course a lot of Asian Americans and their parents, there's always a little gap. So even Anthony's story, I wanted to do it from the opposite point of view. Like he's actually the one that's stuck in between
That's
worlds. Yeah, it's not always the like because I was born here, so I've been like I've said that my whole life that people don't really understand me. Like I'm stuck between both, but I wanted to flip that story so that now you see it's the senior, it's the father figure that's gonna say it. And I thought that was very important because partially maybe because also my dad passed away, and I think like I never got to really get to see his side of what like how he felt about living here.
mm,
Um, and to give us a better life. So I wanted to incorporate that in, and then of course like when you see Dan's story when he's trying to communicate with his daughter, like there's a clear like language gap, and there's a clear like understanding gap of what he thinks is interesting and she thinks is interesting. So I
right.
thought that family dynamic is something very present that should have been showcased, especially in Asian cultures. I feel like it's so and universally too, I imagine.
I think so, but I like that, the specific point of view of East Asian culture. I think it's
Mm,
also to see that, so that it also ties back to this universality
mm.
of our lives abroad. And I do want to ask you about Anthony Wong being cast in this film. A lot of us know him from his other films. He's like
Yes.
a known actor. And
Yes.
I know you had producers that were Canadian and also producers that helped you with the casting. So let's talk about your cast.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to be able to meet, like, get Patrick Tam, who's like won Hong Kong Film Awards, very well known. Uh, Harriet was won Best Supporting Actress in Hong Kong a couple of years ago, and she's up and coming. And Nina Paul is like the mother, like she's
Yeah.
fantastic. And of course, Anthony, who who just got nominated for Best Supporting Actor as well at the Golden Horse. So
Congrats.
for the film. So like it's been great. And I always say as a joke, it's like I really give a lot of credit to our executive producer Ridley,
Mm,
Choi, and Annie Lee, but especially Ridley because like you can't just and oh yeah, and Theresa Lee, who was a former Miss Hong Kong, very well known in Vancouver.
yeah,
Like it was just super cool to get to work with all these everyone and you can't just like message them on Instagram or Facebook and hope that they reply. So, very fortunate I met Ridley after he immigrated to Canada and he wanted to continue working in film. And he is a very well-known Hong Kong action choreographer, director, and yeah, like producer and director himself. He's worked with a lot of these stars already, and he's quite well known.
mm,
So we were super fortunate that when I met with Ridley, he read the script, he really liked it. He said like, "Wow, like um, I was telling him like, yeah, I was thinking of just doing it super indie and like, pandemic, get
right.
this off my chest, get back in the chair." And he's like, no, no, like I really like the script. Let's tweak a couple of things so that it's more digestible for commercial audiences. And he said, if we bring in these cast, like it could really help get the film further.
Right.
So he contacted the actors himself
Mm,
and talked to their agents, got them the script, and like he basically like got us through that first door because it's almost impossible to get them to read like a full script.
yeah, it's
Uh,
great.
s- so he took care of all of that for us, and then through that, through, and then he also like financed, like got all the financing and took everything on and said like, yeah, we're gonna make this. And it was really just bringing on the cast. Uh, after really made the introduction, they read the script. The cast was actually quite interested in the story, so all flew to Hong Kong last year, 2024 March,
Yeah.
and met with them and pitched them and talked to them about the idea, and they were all very excited to do it and willing and to come all the way to Canada and do this indie passion project with us. So I feel quite blessed for the whole situation.
That is such a great story, but that's also a testament to having great producers. And that's something that, sometimes general audiences don't always know what a producer is.
Mm.
But this is such a great example of, somebody who's wore different hats and was also able to get contacts for you and kind of get you to where you're at and thinking long term for your film too, where it could go next.
Yeah.
So what was that? Was your production kind of in terms of like filming, how long did that take and sort of because it seems like it was quite quick then for you from last year to now.
Uh, the entire production took shooting days. We only shot about 20 days. Like we shot 20 days.
Mhm.
So it was a very, very quick shoot. And I think the one thing is like we had an amazing team here. Our Toronto producer, Kim, who I've worked with before, she really put everything together here and really brought on an amazing team. And from a lot of the team was actually either Chinese or Asian, and then the other half wasn't. But even the people who weren't, I think everybody just really felt passionate about the script and saw how much it mattered to us. So we had like our non-Chinese crew members would would go to their friend, like they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to my friend's parents' house this weekend just to sit there and to see how like the set design is.
Mhm.
And so, or like locations, people would be like, oh, Tim, can you take me to some of these cafes that you talk about, or these karaoke's, or these restaurants, and let me just feel what it is. And it was really touching to hear all that because like they just really wanted to be committed and they were so passionate. And then our Cantonese crew, like a lot of people were like working on bigger shows. Like they had like way bigger tier A shows, but they were like, no, like I just like because like one of the locations we shot at that one of our props people, like our props master, Tiffany, she grew up eating at that restaurant, and the manager she knew, so
Right.
she was like this is my backyard, like so a lot of people turned down other work just to make sure that they could park, and it was like much bigger tier A, higher DGC shows. They were like, no, like we really want to come support this. So it was quite touching. So I think like even though it was limited time and budgets of course are always tough, but when you have people that are so passionate and care, I think that's the one thing that helps get the process going and keeps everybody's spirits up.
Mhm.
So yeah, I give a lot of credit to like Kim, our producer, and the whole team, and of course my DP Jeff because we both went to NYU together and everything. So we had that little bond. Mhm.
I was gonna say shout out to your DP as well, your director of photography for a nice looking film too.
Yeah.
In terms of the I'm mindful of time for ourselves, but in terms of sort of the length of the film and the editing, can you talk a little bit about when you saw the cut that was to you? This is it. This is the film. It makes total sense now.
I think one thing I've learned is from many people is that like art is never completed. It's always just abandoned. So eventually you have to let it go. I think right now is the complete version that everybody feels is the right cut. And I think it's the right time and the world has seen it already and people have felt very connected to it. So
Right.
I think it's right. I think most filmmakers will always say we'll never be satisfied. We always want to go back and tweak things and fix things. I think that's everybody. But it but I understand that like they got to a point where everybody was very happy and pleased with the film.
So
Yeah.
the film is going to be at the Toronto Real Asian
Mhm.
Film Festival, but it's also been to Vancouver for the Vancouver International Film Festival. So I want to ask you about what it was like to show it to a public audience and sort of getting those reactions in real time.
I was very nervous actually. I'm not gonna lie. Uh, but in Vancouver, it was actually quite nice after because I think it was and I think that's why relation is also so important.
Mhm.
When we keep mentioning the idea of like representation,
Yes.
at Real Asian, sorry, at Vancouver, I really felt it because a lot of people who were older that were like in their 40s and 50s who really identify with it, like people were crying, people came up to us and said like, I'm literally Harriet's character. And it was like actually like a male, like he was like, I'm taking care of my mom and I'm almost 50.
Mm.
Or other people would say that, yeah, like that Dan character, that's my neighbor. Or, oh, the lady that, the Theresa character, that's somebody I know too.
Yeah.
And and I think that was the one thing is that why so much of the community, like the locations, everybody was willing to offer it. Because when we were telling people about like the story, they were like, yeah, like that literally is like my neighbor or this or other person. So it was quite nice in Vancouver to see that it connected with people so much and and like yeah like I and you could really feel that like they felt that they were seen. I always steal a quote from Lee Chan-dong, a director. He always says that he tries to make films for the communities and the people. If they see themselves, they'll feel seen. And I was very happy that we were able to accomplish that. And I think that was a good sign for me too, with your last question that like maybe we are done. Like, we don't have to go back. And and going to Real Asian is just really great too, because I think we're pretty close to selling out actually. I just because yeah,
Okay.
like I think there's only like the first row that's available and I expect the same because it is the local crowd and it is everybody's backyard. So I'm very excited for that and especially because my first short it also screened at the Real Asian, and we won a couple of awards there, and that was kind of like a good sign to keep going on this path. And so I'm very happy to go back to Real Asian. I think, yeah, like these festivals are so important because I also feel, although it's specific to a Cantonese community, but you also mentioned that it feels kind of universal still because
Mhm.
people deal with these struggles, and it's it's seeing these different stories of different groups of people, but I think it builds empathy and it reminds us, even though we're different, we're actually quite the same.
Mhm.
Like that's the connectivity that I think um, film festivals and Real Asian and everybody really does. Like it connects us together more.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because I think that's sort of what I try to tell folks in terms of festivals that Real Asian is big, but it's not huge. It's a great size festival in terms of films you can see through the days, but also just being able to be immersed in community,
Hmm.
whether I'm of the East Asian community or not. It's to me that's
Yeah.
not. It's the fact that I'm also feeling accepted into that community and sharing of stories and sort of also seeing that, how people react to being seen on screen. I always find that to me that's part of the charm of being in a cinema,
Yes, I agree.
right?
You, yeah.
Were there any kind of special reactions from the Vancouver premiere that kind of have stayed with you or anything that surprised you?
I think one thing surprised me is that like somebody came in and twice to watch it. And
Hmm.
like and to get Chinese people to buy tickets twice, I always find that amazing. Not that we don't do that, but I think but they I think they came the first day and then with friends and then they brought their children to
Oh,
come back and watch it the second time and then they were quite touched. Same thing, there was a couple of people who said like that literally is my life right now on screen. So, and I think when you hear these things, it's like it does stay with you. And people like yeah, like a lot of people cried, which I thought was quite nice. Well, not nice, but I think it emotionally affected them. And I agree. I think there's something about watching it in a room with people where you don't play with your phone and you laugh, cry,
yeah.
hold your breath, and that's how I think empathy is created, even if we're different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And and I think that's what connects us. So. That
Mhm.
was really, yeah. So that was one of the things that was quite nice about the Vancouver, the Vancouver side, and people thought that it really connected with them.
That's
Like
nice.
it really.
And I would assume the same here for Real Asian and anywhere else that you go. I think in general, people do want storytelling more and also more authentic stories too. And to your point about the reactions, I think it's great to hear that people feel validated because
Mm.
seeing these stories on screen, but it also validates the importance of you telling these stories, you know? So on that note, are you working on anything else? What's on your slate for after Finch and Midland?
I think I'm gonna take a little break. I might go into doing a short on another piece that I'm trying to develop. Ridley also has a very, very interesting project that I might help him write. I probably won't direct that one, but like I might help him write because it's a really cool idea that I think I want to get
Mhm.
my hands on.
Right.
And but we'll see what happens. And I also have my previous script that was about the Chinese girls doing a fake marriage ring. That
Right.
and that project received the award at the Busan International Film Festival Asian Project Market. So we might bring that one back up. But I think I just need to lead into because fortunately we are doing a theatrical release next year in February through Equinox Films. Yeah, I just got a message to make sure I remind the world of that.
That's
Yes.
ask you if we could talk about that, but that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in Hong Kong, Golden Scene is doing the theatrical release for us also next year.
Okay,
So
nice.
So I think I will try to get us all the way to the finish line and then see what happens after. But
Mm.
so far it's been a very pleasant and delightful little journey of ours.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So we want people to see Finch and Midland at the Toronto Real Asian. I think it's on Sunday, November 9th. I'll make
Mhm.
sure that the details are available in the description so people know where to go. Timothy, thank you so much for your time
Thank
and
you.
sharing your stories. And I'm really happy for you and congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your time as well.
Appreciate it. Thanks.